Wilson, and I am excited to show you my portfolio today. At the very top, you can see I have a navigation area with some micro interactions. I also have my hero section here, which features an AI video of myself that I prompted through a headshot of myself. I have a featured project section, which works similar to a wallet, a digital wallet. And I have some reviews from past clients that I have worked with and had the privilege of interacting with and helping with their own projects at the very bottom of my home section. At the top, we have Let's Connect About Me and Work. So I'm going to go right to left. We have this Let's Connect section, which is simply just a way for people to contact me and get in touch. I also have LinkedIn down here, my email, and a PDF of my resume. In the About Me section, I start off with linking you to a professional view. And with that, I have also a resume that's linked, and then my basically experience, education, leadership and rewards, tech stack, and skills that are all listed on my resume for the most part, but just in a more digestible format on this page. At the very top, you can also see there's a personal view that you can click on. This is probably my favorite part of my portfolio that I think the least amount of people will view, but it shows a little bit just about who I am, what I like to do in my free time outside of designing, and I think it's a little bit of a quirkier side of me that I'm hoping will pique the intrigue of some recruiters in the future. Finally, we have my work section where we are going to go into the user experience research to discuss Health Hub, my main case study. Now, this is a very long project that I did, so I'm not going to be able to go into all of the details. I do want to point out that I was the sole UX researcher and product designer, which was a very fun portion to understand how a process works completely from start to finish. You can see that the main goal of Health Hub, this application that I worked on, was to unify fragmented patient data into one secure, accessible digital wallet. The main problem that I was seeing with users was the extreme frustration of fragmented data, such as through insurance changes or doctor changes, and having data lost that was really difficult to recover if they could at all. So my goal was to have a higher retention rate, achieve a 25% user stickiness, as well as achieve a 4 out of 5 satisfaction rating among healthcare staff adopting the platform. So to start off my research, I did a competitive analysis through some competitors to better understand where, if any, there was a gap in the market. I found there was a gap in the market within this particular area of combining all health records into one place. So I had a product strategy to make the minimum viable product due to having a time constraint and always a resource constraint as well, and in order to stay in scope. The initial user research was probably one of my most favorite parts of the project. This was because I got to interact with different people and use my psychology degree as well, which was really, really nice to do. I was able to interview 6 people over Zoom and 35 people over a survey. And through all of that research, I was able to use all of the information to create an affinity map, create more broader themes, and then use that information to create a user persona that I could better understand and try to have as a person who is relatable and someone that many of the users could also see themselves doing or seeing. So through that, I created a user journey map that was able to better understand the different feelings and emotions that this particular user, Glenn, may have throughout a particular process, such as reviewing their medical records. I also did user stories to better put myself in the shoes of Glenn and better understand who this person really is and who he represents. I also did some task flows to better visualize what that process may look like for him. And then I also did a sitemap categorization. So I used a card sort with different users to better understand how categorization may naturally feel within the app And through that, I was able to decrease the categories from 9 down to 4 main categories that users could use. Jumping into the iteration of the app itself, after I started doing more deeper research and analysis, I started off with a low fidelity portion of the app because it helped prioritize hierarchy and save days, if not even longer, of technical debt and trying to make sure that I was able to iterate very quickly and understand user pain points without needing to go through a digital process. I moved into mid fidelity just as a way to have a clearer happy path for our user persona, which also helped me iterate quickly and not really focus on colors. Finally, I moved into a high fidelity mockup, and that was where it was getting down to the nitty gritty and was able to better understand how I can conduct user interviews to understand further pain points. I created a design system to better make sure that I was also iterating quickly with a reusable component library and help set up people for success in the future who have to work on this project. I had more user interviews with 6 different participants, and I was able to understand what their pain points were with actually jumping in and utilizing this application. With all of their data that I had, I was able to create an affinity map as well as a rainbow spreadsheet to better understand different severity ratings of each observation that I had throughout the process. I had 5 main takeaways of things that were the biggest frustrations for the users, and I noted them down and will not go through them all today, but they were very, very helpful in creating a better user experience for future users. I also did preference testing on something that was getting a bit of mixed reviews from the interviewees. So at first, I had a GIF video in a way to showcase what the user could expect. And then I also had a more static option of onboarding. And it turned out, although I thought that the engaging GIF would be the case, it turned out that actually people preferred 73% of the participants preferred the static imagery, which just went to show that assumptions may not and most likely are not actually reliable, and that user research is what needs to be done in order to better understand how this application will perform in a realistic world. Finally, I was able to help with accessibility and ensuring that there were labels and subtitles and alt text and all the things necessary to make sure that my app was extremely accessible to any user, especially someone like Glenn who may be visually impaired. I also utilized my own psychology degree to better create emotional design, such as having this band-aid as a loading application instead of just a loading icon itself, which just creates more user buy-in to this particular app. I also made sure that I was utilizing Material Design 3 or Material U by Android to help create consistency amongst the user experience. With all of this, I also made sure that this was not just a tablet or mobile device application, but it also worked on a desktop to make sure that it was usable throughout every single person that has owned or can own a device, and it was not just exclusive to an app portion. Now, in order to validate my design and my research, I wanted to have 4 of my peers within the design community do a heuristic evaluation where I provide 0 context and had them comment on the application and how they thought it was presented itself. I also was ensuring that there were great documentation throughout the entire process so that in the case that I were to hand off this project to an engineer or someone else, that they would know exactly where to go, exactly what to do. And the main lessons that I learned were as follows. Accessibility is not optional. It is actually a core component. There is extreme benefit for clarity over aesthetic delight because most people prefer something to be usable. There is so much benefit with data centralization, and that is a huge portion of this application's goal. There is also so much benefit in having a design system early and iterating on it often. And then finally, the biggest takeaway was probably that leveraging AI in this current uh, decade is extremely useful as more of a strategic collaborator rather than a shortcut. It is very helpful for helping refine large amounts of data in order to understand themes. And finally, with that, you can play around with the app at the very bottom and see other work that I have been working on. Thank you so much.